I have failed so many times at trying to make this bloody sourdough, but thank you so much for all the tips and tricks you gave me. So let's test them out and see if I can actually create my own sourdough, because I can create my own sourdough starter. Let's see if I can actually make the sourdough loaf as well.
The first change I'm going to be doing is 300 grams of water. Because I'm just using the cheapest available flour, the protein content is quite low, which does affect the water absorption. And also I'm in a very humid environment, which makes a difference as well.
Another tip I was given was told to add the flour now and let that sit, but I don't want to do every single change to start with, because then I'm not going to know what was the difference.
So I'm going to add my 100 grams of sourdough starter here. A lot of people said to use your sourdough starter when it needs feeding, so this was fed about 12 hours ago. Give it a good mix together. I'm adding 500 grams of flour now. I'm hoping reducing the water and still using a cheaper flour will give me a decent sourdough loaf, but I will give it a go with a high protein flour at another time. Mix this together to form a shaggy dough. Now I got lots of comments that were for and against sprinkling the salt over the top and also using pink Himalayan salt, but I'm going to stick to how I originally did it, and if it causes any problems then I know not to do it next time. So it's just 10 grams of salt. Cover that and leave it for an hour. It's been an hour and I'm going to use my dough scraper to fold that salt all through the dough. I can't believe the difference in this dough already. It feels so much better. I am going to make sure that my hands are slightly wet for the next part, and I'm going to spend about 3 minutes slapping and folding my dough. This is another step that had conflicting opinions, but I'm going to stick with what I did before. And then I'm just going to place it back in my bowl and cover it with a wet tea towel or cover that's been dampened. Leave it for 30 minutes and then start my first stretch and fold. I have slightly dampened my hand and my dough scraper. I'm actually going to grab my dough in the center, let it drop itself and do its own stretch, and then fold over itself and turn and repeat. After I've done 4 of those, I'm going to put my damp cover over it and leave it for half an hour again. I'm going to repeat my 4 stretch and folds again, and not only does my dough feel so much better than my previous attempts, there's little bubbles starting to form in the dough as well. Cover and rest for 30 minutes and then on to our next stretch and fold. Altogether I did 4 sets of 4 stretches and folds, resting it for half an hour in between each set, and after my final stretch and fold I did decide to use my straight edge container again. I just find this so much easier than a bowl to see how much my dough has proved, so it's just a matter of popping my dough into the container. I use the rubber band as a marker for proving, put a damp cover over the top and then leave it for about 4 or 5 hours to prove. Now it is really humid today and I didn't take that into consideration, so this has only been 2 hours of proving. I'm going to pop it out of the container, stretch it out into a rectangle and then fold it into itself. I can't believe how much better this dough feels. I'm so excited. I think I'm actually going to achieve this. I'm just going to kind of tuck it in to make it into a ball, and now I'm just going to kind of roll it into itself to try and get it tighter as a ball. So I'm just going up and around, and I do have a little bit of flour on my hands because the dough is slightly sticky. Now I don't have a Dutch oven, so I need to make this more an oval shape. I have placed some flour in the bottom of my container, and now I'm just going to give it one last roll and then place it upside down into the container. I'm going to make sure that my cover is damp, cover it and then put it in the fridge for 1 to 2 days. I couldn't wait 2 days. It's been 1 day. And I can't believe this is actually looking like it's going to work. Now, because I didn't plan this very well, I do not have a Dutch oven and thought I would use my loaf pan that has the cover instead, but this is too big to fit in there. So I am going to carefully try and split this in half without deflating all that proving. Well, that actually worked heaps better than I thought it would have. I've got my loaf pan in the oven at 250 degrees to get nice and hot, and now I'm just going to use this razor to score it. Now my loaf pan is super hot, so I'm just going to quickly pop this in there. Pop the lid on, my oven preheating at 230 degrees fan forced, and I'm going to bake this for 18 minutes. The oven's beeped, so I'm going to take the lid off. Oh my god, look how good this is looking. Now I'm going to reduce the heat to 210 and cook it for about 12 or 13 minutes. This looks pretty done to me. When I tap it, it does sound hollow. I'm going to leave it in the tin for about 5 minutes and then sit it on my cooling rack for at least 1 hour before I cut it. I repeated the same cooking times for my second loaf, and now it's time for our moment of truth. While it's not 100% perfect inside, I am so impressed with how much better this has turned out than my previous attempts.
Thank you so much for the tips and tricks that you gave me so that I could actually create my own sourdough. I feel so much more confident, especially because I know where I was going wrong. It was driving me absolutely crazy. So thank you. I feel so relieved.
And I feel like I'm on the right track now. I do have a few ideas for my next loaf to make it even better. So if you are someone that wants to try and perfect sourdough as well, make sure you're following along and we can learn together.